The ocean never sleeps. It holds its breath, waiting for the next shadow to slip through its depths. On the muggy evening of July 3rd, 2025, a Colombian naval patrol cut through the Caribbean swells like a blade. Their radar pinged once, then again. Something was moving just beneath the surface, too low, too silent, too deliberate to be a fishing boat or drifting wreckage. When divers finally secured the vessel and hauled it onto the deck, the crew gathered in stunned silence. This was no ordinary craft. It was a sleek, unmanned submarine, engineered with a precision that belonged in a military black project. Inside, no cargo, only carefully packed sandbags calibrated to mimic the weight of a lethal payload. And bolted to its frame was something that sent a chill through every officer present, a high-end industrial satellite terminal wired straight into the Starlink constellation. Someone had hijacked a system designed to be impenetrable without official clearance. The question hung in the humid air like gun smoke. How? That single discovery cracked open a door no one wanted to walk through. Because this wasn't the first time authorities had pulled one of these ghosts from the sea. 14 others had been quietly intercepted over the years, their combined hauls totaling more than 25 tons of contraband. And every time, investigators walked away with the same uneasy feeling, that they were chasing something far smarter than the cartels they thought they knew. The architect behind these vessels wasn't just moving product. He was rewriting the laws of detection itself. To understand how we arrived at that moment, we have to go back to the shifting tides of a global empire built on shadows. For decades, the world's most powerful narcotics networks had relied on familiar routes and familiar faces. Then, everything changed. Remote mountain kingdoms that once flooded the planet with their harvest fell under new rulers who crushed the trade with ruthless efficiency. Overnight, the pipelines from those regions ran dry. The vacuum was filled almost instantly by syndicates across Latin America, Mexico, Peru, Bolivia, and especially Colombia, the beating heart of the new order. These organizations didn't just adapt, they evolved. Smuggling had always been a deadly game of cat and mouse across land, air, and sea. On the ocean, the old guard used battered freighters and desperate crews who knew that capture meant either bullets or decades behind bars. Some even turned to human shields, innocent passengers snatched from coastal towns, to deter naval interdiction. One wrong move, and the evening news would explode with images of hostages and gunfire. The stakes were apocalyptic. Governments poured trillions into the fight every year, yet the innovation on the other side never stopped. Concealment inside fruit shipments, electrical cables, children's toys, nothing was too creative, too grotesque, or too mundane. Still, the best minds in law enforcement believed they had seen every trick. They were wrong. In the early 2020s, one of Colombia's most elusive kingpins reached the end of his long, bloodless reign. He had risen through cunning rather than brutality, building an empire that moved more product than most governments could track. Now he wanted out. Not quietly. Not with a simple handover to Interpol. He wanted a farewell that would echo through the underworld for generations. A single, audacious shipment of 15 metric tons that would dwarf anything ever attempted. Enough to flood entire continents and retire every lieutenant who had ever stood by his side. But every conventional route had become a death trap. Planes were grounded before takeoff. Land convoys were betrayed by their own shadows. The sea, however, still held secrets. His solution was as brilliant as it was terrifying. He would build his own fleet of underwater phantoms. Deep in the impenetrable rainforests of Colombia, far from prying satellites and jungle trails, the kingpin's men moved like ghosts themselves. One moonless night, a team of 12 elite engineers, mechanical wizards, electrical savants, naval architects, and system specialists was taken from their homes and workplaces without a trace. No ransom notes, no demands. Just the sudden permanent vanishing of men who had spent their lives designing bridges, submarines for legitimate navies, and autonomous drones for peaceful research. They woke up in a makeshift laboratory carved into the green hell of the jungle, guarded by armed men who spoke softly but carried weapons that needed no introduction. The kingpin appeared before them only once. Calm, almost professorial, he laid out the terms. Design and perfect a series of submersible craft capable of crossing oceans undetected. Succeed, and each man would receive a fortune so vast it would rewrite their family's destinies for centuries. Fail, and the jungle would simply swallow them whole. The engineers, trapped between terror and unimaginable wealth, chose to build. 6 months later, the prototypes were ready. The first was the simplest, yet most elegant, a converted coastal trawler barely 50 feet long, painted in mottled blues and grays that blended with the sea like ink in water. Its propulsion system was a masterpiece of restraint, a single, massive engine mounted in the stern, designed to fire only in a devastating 5-minute burst. After that, the vessel would glide on momentum and carefully calculated currents, silent as a shark. No constant motors, no noisy bilge pumps, no radar-reflecting antennas. The hull was coated in a flexible radar-absorbent polymer that swallowed electromagnetic waves instead of bouncing them back. Inside, the cargo bay was calibrated to the exact ounce, no more, no less, so the craft rode at the precise depth to stay invisible. It was less a submarine and more a guided torpedo with room for minimal crew. The second model stretched longer for transatlantic voyages, fitted with auxiliary fuel tanks that allowed the engine to restart at pre-programmed intervals, nudging the vessel back on course without ever lingering on the surface long enough to be noticed. The third was the true marvel, a fully submersible design that could dive deep and stay submerged for weeks. A small, automated air intake mast could breach the surface for mere seconds when sensors detected safe conditions, drawing fresh air while cameras and basic navigation aids corrected its path. The crew compartment felt almost livable, a sealed capsule where men could endure the long, dark crossing without losing their minds. The fourth ran on banks of heavy-duty batteries, silent, lightning fast, but limited in range. Its genius lay in the towing rig, a reinforced cable that let it hitch a ride beneath an ordinary fishing vessel until it reached the final approach to shore. At the right moment, the cable would be cut, and the Ghost would finish the journey alone while the mothership played the part of an innocent trawler. 4 prototypes. 4 different answers to the same impossible question. How do you hide something the size of a small bus from every eye in the sky and every ear beneath the waves? The Kingpin approved. 15 vessels were constructed, each one a masterpiece of minimalism and deception. The cargo was prepared, routes were mapped, and then came the final audacious layer of the plan. The Kingpin had spent years cultivating allies in places no one would suspect. On the American side, an entire unit of law enforcement vehicles and personnel had been bought and paid for. When the vessels reached the Florida coast, these men would stage a public arrest, load the cargo into marked vans, and vanish into the bureaucracy of the justice system, only to deliver it straight into the hands of the network. The Kingpin would collect half the payment up front, the rest upon successful delivery. It was perfect, bulletproof, until it wasn't. By the spring of 2022, intelligence agencies across 33 nations had begun picking up whispers of something colossal in the works. No one knew the method. No one knew the exact date. But the scale was unmistakable. Satellites shifted, patrols doubled, navies from Europe to Asia to the United States tightened their nets. Still, the fleet slipped into the water on the night of June 13th like phantoms returning home. Some vessels headed east across the Atlantic toward European ports. Others turned north toward the United States. A smaller group aimed for distant Asian markets. For hours, the ocean swallowed them completely. Then, the first cracks appeared. Off the coast of Spain, near the narrow throat of the Strait of Gibraltar, patrol vessels converged on 5 of the subs as if guided by an invisible hand. The crews were taken into custody before they could scuttle their craft. Similar scenes played out in the Pacific approaches to Asia. Half the fleet, half the dream, was gone in a single coordinated sweep. The Kingpin, monitoring from a safe house deep in the Colombian interior, felt the ground shift beneath him. He ordered his most trusted lieutenant on the American side to stand ready. The remaining vessels, carrying the other 7.5 tons, were still gliding toward Miami's glittering shoreline. They made it. Under cover of darkness, the sub surfaced just long enough to transfer their cargoes to waiting speedboats that ferried everything to a secluded stretch of beach. The corrupt police unit was there, lights flashing, sirens wailing for the benefit of any distant witnesses. They loaded the vans with theatrical efficiency, slapped cuffs on the delivery crews for the cameras, and drove off into the night toward what everyone assumed would be a secure handover. But the Kingpin's lieutenant had been planning his own exit. As the convoy rolled through the pre-dawn streets, he diverted 3 of the vans to a secondary location, a quiet warehouse far from the planned drop. There, his personal crew was waiting. What happened next unfolded with cold, clinical precision. The original delivery men were eliminated. The lieutenant's own men who had helped him were eliminated as well. No witnesses, no loose ends. 15 tons of pure contraband vanished into the back of a single unmarked truck that disappeared into the vast American highway system before the sun had fully risen. When the Kingpin learned of the betrayal, the rage that had built his empire finally broke him. He had lost half his fleet to international forces and the other half to the very man he had trusted to protect it. His fortune, his legacy, his carefully orchestrated farewell, all gone. He vanished that same week. Some say he slipped away on a private yacht under a false identity. Others claim he never left Colombia at all. The engineers who had built the impossible, they were never seen again. The jungle has a way of keeping secrets. As for the lieutenant who pulled off the ultimate double-cross, rumors swirl even now. Some intelligence reports place him on a luxury vessel somewhere in the South Pacific. Others insist he commandeered a military transport plane and flew the cargo to an undisclosed location in the Caribbean. No one knows for certain. The authorities recovered every single submarine, some still bobbing gently in Miami's shallows, their cargo bays empty, their silent engines a testament to human ingenuity pushed to its darkest limit. A media blackout descended almost immediately. Official statements were vague. The world moved on. But those who understand the game know the truth. The operation that should have crowned a criminal career instead became its quiet epitaph. 15 tons of contraband, enough to alter the landscape of entire nations, simply dissolved into legend. The Kingpin who wanted to exit the stage in glory left it in silence. The lieutenant who thought he had outsmarted everyone discovered that in this world, the house always finds a way to collect. And somewhere out there, beneath the restless waves, the ocean continues to whisper, waiting for the next shadow to glide through its depths. Because the one thing history has proven, time and again, is that no matter how many vessels are seized, no matter how many fortunes are lost, someone is always ready to build the next ghost. The sea never sleeps, and neither, it seems, does the darkness that moves beneath it.